All right, extra, extra. See all about it or whatever. This is the press conference highlights video, an extra video that we are doing every day that Ole Miss is practicing this week. Lane Kiffin, Jeremy James, and Tysheem Johnson spoke today. It's a real exciting time. I'll let you hear from them, and I'll tell you all about what they said and kind of translate that a little bit. But this is the press conference highlights on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the press conference highlights video, an extra video on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast channel. Thank you for tuning in. And also, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications when we release new videos, and of course, upvote the video itself. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, big treat. Live post-game show with Ole Miss legends after Ole Miss football games. So that should be a lot of fun. It won't be an over amount of time. It's small time constraint. Unlike other people that do go on and on and on and on. It might be 30 minutes because we try to do things short here and kind of let you get on with what you're doing and have fun doing what you're doing. But thank you very much for making it the first listen every day. Now, Lane Kiffin, Tysheem Johnson, and Jeremy James spoke today, talking all about what they see through 4 practices in spring practice. And because of that, you learned some interesting things. First of all, apparently Michael Trigg is absolutely balling. Absolutely. Lane Kiffin is watching spring practice to determine how the last slots for spring for the transfer portal will end up, just like we said. And we will talk, he himself will talk on there about his philosophy with spring practice. Also, turnovers are a problem right now in the quarterback competition. We'll explain a little bit what that means as well. But right now, let's listen to Lane Kiffin, Jeremy James, and Tysheem Johnson.
All right, good to be out there. Just continuing to work through. Like we said before, it's a little bit different because so many new guys. It's almost like a training camp feel. Where normally in spring, just have your returning guys you're working with. So that's pretty exciting to have so many new guys that you get to coach up and figure out roles for them.
It's good. Feels good. Still kind of getting used to just switching everything in my head, but it feels really good.
It's been actually good. I can see there's a improvement from last year. Like the speed is slowing down for me. Like I'm starting to see stuff more than I was last year. Spring been going good so far.
Well, first that wasn't a scrimmage, so all we did was practice. We just went in the stadium for part of it. So, it wasn't near the evaluation of a scrimmage format. But, I think they're all doing things good. We've got to take care of the ball better, and especially when we push the ball downfield, too many interceptions. But, this will be an exciting competition.
They talked to me after the bowl game, and I told them, they asked if that would be something I'd want to do. I just kind of told them that I'd do whatever. If I need to play left tackle, I'll move there. If I need to stay right tackle, I'll stay there. So it was just whatever for me. I'll just do whatever.
I would say the experience from playing in all the games last year, the big games, all the crowds, more film, like seeing stuff differently. Like I'm seeing plays now that last year was like I didn't even know what was going on. So I just want to say the experience probably really helped me the most.
I wouldn't really say didn't expect them to because we have high expectations for guys, but I just think the portal guys, are more. It's not a hit and miss as a high school guy because you're seeing them play college football. So, those guys, not to just focus on them, but they have looked really good, and we didn't really take a lot of guys necessarily that were at a major place but not playing, that left just because they were unhappy because they were sitting on the bench. then that's more of a wild card because you're getting them and you really haven't seen film. Maybe they just sat out and redshirted or barely played. Most of these guys played, so it's that's been good because it kind of the analytics of it. As you look at it, you're saying, okay, well here's these guys and they all look like they can help us. Versus when you get your high school guys, the first week or two. You see some guys say that those guys can help us and some guys that are probably, a ways away.
Hey, that was Lane Kiffin, Tysheem Johnson, and Jeremy James talking about what's going on. But I want to tell you before we move on to translating that information is about Stat Hero. Stat Hero, I love and I hate those buzzer beaters, the drama. But oh, the pain when you're on the other side of it. That's what happened in 2 or 3 games this year, and I needed the other to happen. So Stat Hero's NCAA single-game pick'ems pits the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Take back control from those handicappers that always seem to have the advantage. Start focusing on the players you know best with the gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, long odds, or funky props. So this is what you do. Sign up today, right now, at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON, all one word. For 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. stathero.com/lockedon. Promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. And after months of playing, college basketball has finally determined its top team for the Final Four and will determine this year's national champion in the coming weeks. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports information from all the latest odds, contest, and player props, you name it. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your latest sports developments, including podcasts and reviews for all the leagues this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline, where the games start. Okay, there you have it. You heard from themselves. Now, a lot of news to talk about, and we will continue to talk about in the Locked On Ole Miss podcast tomorrow morning. But from listening to Lane Kiffin and hearing his whole interview. By the way, if you want to hear his whole interview, you can tune into it on YouTube through the Ole Miss official Ole Miss channel, Ole Miss Sports channel, and you can hear everything that's said, all the questions asked, and a little inside baseball here. That is how stories are going to be written for the next 5 days, off of questions answered in these press conferences. Since Lane Kiffin doesn't talk but about once or twice a week, so far it's been once, his answers to question have to be feeder for stories for the remainder of the week. That's how they get the content out there. The more content's out there, the more people subscribe, pay attention. It's just the way it works. So if you want to know everything that is going to be written and hear directly from the horse's mouth, go to the official Ole Miss Sports YouTube channel, watch the press conference in full, and you can actually see. You can see players that are getting irritated by questions that are being asked, the whole 9 yards. And you have context about what is said. And today we learned that there's been a little bit of a turnover problem in the quarterback competition. Now, we also know that Luke Altmaier has kind of been playing it safe on his throws and not going downfield. So saying there's a turnover problem downfield goes back to what I was saying about Gunslinger and things that like that. You think you can make every throw. It can be problematic, but it has to be coached out of you. And that's where that experience gap can stay to the end of spring practice. Like I said, if it closes at all, which it likely will, and I'm not saying anything, but this competition is real. And it's real just on the fact that it has to be a competition or you lose your backup quarterback. They're not going to just give a quarterback his role. They're not just going to hand the keys over to him and go. Now, you can say that Lane Kiffin wouldn't have signed him if he wasn't going to do it. You can say that Jackson Dart wouldn't have came here if he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback. That's all true, but that doesn't mean that there's not a competition. That doesn't mean that it's not about what they do. Nothing is going to be handed, because one of the tenets of this program is competition. It just absolutely is. And because of that, you're going to see them battle pretty consistently for the next 4 months for a job. And the turnovers on the deep passes, they brought that out. That is Lane Kiffin talking about what's going on, giving a clue. That gunslinger stuff that we talk about from Jackson Dart, that is apparent. It's not a problem. We're 4 or 5 months away from the first game. There's plenty of time to get better. But right now for him, he is completely drinking from the fire hose. And by him, I mean Jackson Dart. He's drinking from the fire hose, and that's okay. He's learning a new coach, a new system. And he does have that supreme confidence to be able to make the Brett Favre type throws, the arm and everything going in. He was the Gatorade National Player of the Year. These are all positives. But coaches, as we have said, since the creation of this podcast, you can go back in time and find out what's going on. They are extremely risk averse. They do not like turnovers. They do not like massive changes of momentum. They want everything to be the sure thing that you want everything to be. And the difference is they're making $7 million a year. Their butt's on the line. And an official level of pressure that you know nothing about. I mean, there's nobody probably listening to this podcast that can understand that amount of pressure. Plus, you have a cabal of people that think they know better. All because they might be friends with administrators and coaches and athletes along the day. They've collected them. They think they know better than you do, than the coaches do. So when I tell you about what's going on, I tell you about what's really going on. That cabal might want there to absolutely be no competition because they're investing the NIL money in Jackson Dart. And because of that NIL money, by the way, I don't know what media thing that you can trust in coverage of him. How many people are in his pocket, so to speak, in NIL? I don't know. With these not necessarily being public things, it's just a whole can of worms. But Jackson Dart is supremely talented. He is projected to win this quarterback competition. And I'm going to talk about the competition and mention that Luke Altmaier has a path to win. I'm not saying that Luke Altmaier is going to win. Don't hear that. There's some people in the comments over the last couple of days that's what they hear. They just want Jackson Dart to be handed the keys and nobody to talk about it. No, that's not the way this works at all. And I'm going to continue to talk about it. And Luke Altmaier absolutely has a path to the starting quarterback job. Remember, one of the 3 tenets of this program is competition. And because of that, Luke Altmaier is going to get his fair shake. He's a good quarterback. He did what he can do, and he performed admirably in the Sugar Bowl. He deserves where he is. He has a year in the system. Everything backed up. There's a whole lot of stuff that he's comfortable with at this point, including the plays and a lot of the players. It's important for him to extend that experience gap that he has over Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart played at USC. I'm not saying he didn't, but he played in the air raid there. He has to learn new system, new players, new coaches. That has to learn everything. Like I said, it's like drinking from the fire hose. And because of that, there's a little bit of an edge right now in the experience gap between him and Luke Altmaier. Now, my point is, if that shrinks at all through spring practice, it's over. This quarterback competition is done, and Jackson Dart is eventually going to win. But Jackson Dart has to worry about his gunslinger thing because that's going to really bother extremely risk-averse people that coaches they just naturally are. And you saw that in 2020 with the defense. And they had personnel problems and everything because the film gap that they watched hours and hours and hours upon film, and they make a decision after they have so many hours. Well, you couldn't get that in 2020 because spring practice was canceled. They didn't start but regular practice in August. And that film going into the new defense, you basically had to guess with personnel. They guessed wrong. By the end of the year, the defense got a lot better. It just did. but at the beginning was absolutely shambolic. And it was because they had to guess. Coaches are extremely risk-averse people. So remember that. When they're talking about turnovers, they want them to stop. Because that is their biggest fear. That is the thing they fear most. And that, this early in spring practice, is probably a good thing for Jackson Dart, honestly. Most people expect him to win the job. But there is a path for Luke Altmaier because competition is one of the tenets of this program. Anyway, this has been an extra video talking about that. Tomorrow we will continue to talk about today's practice and what's going on and what was talked about in the press conference and beyond. So thank you very much for tuning in and making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Tomorrow we will handle that with today's practice. Now make your second listen the Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football and NFL front offices. It's free wherever you get your podcast. Tomorrow, also, Kara McCutcheon will join with her perspective on Ole Miss sports. So until then, see you later.